So now I want to look at some illuminated manuscripts. So the first page from the Moralized Bible that I'm showing you is of Louis IX and his mother. So we have the king here, or future king really, as a teenager, and his mother. So he's technically like the king, but he's not really in charge yet. The mother is really ruling until he becomes of age. And then below it, we have to the left here a cleric scholar, and then we have a scribe. And it's as though the cleric scholar is dictating to the scribe, maybe even the page that we're looking at, or the manuscript that we're looking at. You'll notice that everything here in the background is gold. It's real gold that's applied to the page that is vellum. Remember, not paper. It's going to be made out of animal skin. And it is illuminating because it's reflecting the light. The metal is reflecting the light. And this is really where we get the term illuminated manuscripts from. You'll notice some weird architectural kind of elements here, or features here, where we have each figure is really shown almost in his or her own architectural space here, where we have the mother in this section here and the king over here in this section. And yet the bottom here of her dress and his feet here cross over the bottom into our space. So there's this play of space that's going on here. And the same holds true for the figures on the bottom. And then you have the buildings here, which are done in some really bizarre way as far as perspective goes, that like this is an individual painting just of the queen here, where it's almost like these buildings are trying to be put in perspective here. This one completely throws that off. And then the same here, where it's almost like that's in perspective this way above him. And the same for these buildings down here. So they're starting to play with the idea of space and perspective also, where, again, this is transition from this very flattened out space into the space that we'll be looking at that comes eventually into a more realistic space in the Renaissance. But if you remember back to like the mosaic of Justinian and the mosaic of his wife, the same kind of thing, where it was like this weird play of space with their feet overlapping each other and stuff, and the flattening out of space. So we can really see that maybe there's a bit of the Byzantine influence here as far as space that is happening in this piece. And this is another page of the same Bible. The moralization of the apocalypse is shown here. And so each of the medallions here, they're stacked one on top of another, and they're telling the story of the apocalypse, the end of the world. And we are dating this to circa 1227 to 1234. And the last piece of illuminated manuscript I want to show you here, let's move this over. Actually, we're not going to run out of time on this one, so I can put it here. It's translated to the Books of Hours. And by this time, we had these small prayer books that were being created, handwritten, and they were being carried mainly by women that are elite women, high class, like a queen in this case, and at certain times of the day they would look at these books and they would pray. So we definitely have, if you remember back from last week, I was saying like not a lot of people knew how to read and write. By this time we definitely have more people learning how to read and write from the higher class in society, not everyone yet. And so what we have here on this side is the story, the biblical story of the kissing of Judas. And he is the one that betrays Jesus. And the story is that he kisses Jesus so that the Roman soldiers know who Jesus is. And with that, he betrays him, if you know your biblical stories. And this is the Annunciation, where the angel comes to Mary and says that you're going to have the baby Jesus. And then here, this book was made for the Queen, and it was commissioned by King Charles IV of France. He ruled between 1322 to 1328, and he had this made for his queen around the time that they got married. And here the queen is depicted actually reading the book. So these were really, small, like I said, small books again, that they would carry around with them, and at certain times of the day, then they would pray.